Hey, welcome to another episode of the Black Guy Tips podcast. I am your host, Rod, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Karen.
And okay, she sounded a little unsure of who she was there.
I am Karen, y'all. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was fumbling back here. I'm good.
All right, Karen is here, and if you looked in the show notes or possibly the title, or if you're just live in the chat room and you have your camera on or you have your video on, we are joined by a guest, a friend of the show,
Yes.
friend in real life, Myq Kaplan. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be back.
Yay.
Hey.
I'm glad you're back. And I'm very, very jealous of Roderick. Roderick has got to meet you twice. I haven't met you
Ha
twice.
ha ha
So
ha.
that is on my list of things to do.
Oh, it'll happen. It's surprising. I'm like, oh, that's right. I feel like we're so close here. We're like just inches away, our faces on the screen, but somehow I understand that it's not the same as
I have to arrange to have Myq as a surprise guest at one of our lunches, Karen.
Thank you.
I like having him as a secret plus one. So
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Myq, how have you been, man? I feel like it's been a little while since we talked to you. I think you got like a haircut since the last time you were on our show.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I think it's just the length of hair, nothing else doing, everything else the same. One major facet of life change that is happening is I've been living in this particular building in Brooklyn for the past 8 years, and my girlfriend has been living here for the past 6 years. And we just found out in the past month that neither of us can keep doing that beyond next month. So at the end of next month, we must. Apparently, the building has a boiler system from before there were boilers or systems. They have. They have to. They're not up to code, so they have to switch to electric from gas, and that's going to. The landlord says, and he's a nice man, a nice man who is a landlord, and it seems like he doesn't want to do this. A lot of times we've been telling people that we have to move, and the landlord's doing work on the place for a year, and they're like, he just wants to get you out to just jack up the rent and who knows? I don't think so, because I mean, part of his secret evil plan is to not be able to rent to anyone in the building for a year. It's like, that my evil will be deferred, but regardless, so the good news, and he gave us 1 month of free rent that he didn't have to because he felt bad, or maybe, who knows, maybe it is a legal thing that he did have to, but he told us it's legal for him to tell us that it's not legal. Like, you know how they say that an undercover cop has to tell you, and like maybe there's certain things that a landlord doesn't have to tell you. He's not an undercover landlord. Maybe I'm the undercover landlord that I don't even know myself, but the point is, we've already paid our last month's rent. So there's between now and August, when my girlfriend and I are going to the Edinburgh Fringe Fest for the first time since 2018, which we loved. And we were gonna have to pay double rent, like rent in Edinburgh and keep our home here. But now I've organized enough travel between June and August that we're just going to put all our stuff in storage and not live anywhere. And it's weird, and I've never done that. But we're going to be, in California for 3 weeks, and then a few different club weekends, Arlington, Virginia, Minneapolis, and then to England and Scotland in July. So there's only like maybe a week or two where we're going to have to be like, can we live here now, please? And we have some friends and family members who are, my mom's like, the Kaplan Airbnb is available in New Jersey, only to you, not to everyone. But yeah, so We are right now. If you're watching, you can clearly see the pristine white backdrop behind me. And if I turned the camera around, you would see, which I'm not going to do. Rini, my girlfriend, just called from the rest of the room, from the other room. She said, no. Because it's sort of like, you know, how before the Big Bang, everything was just in one point, all of the universe, just one. It hadn't even differentiated. Perhaps it was when we were all part of, if you call the universe God, we were just all there, and there was nothing except for everything. And then there was an explosion, and that is what our apartment looks like. There's an explosion. There are, just kind of the Big Bang is banging. It's pretty banging, you know. If this big's a banging, don't come a nangin'. But I've been putting my books in boxes, which I call bookses. I don't, but why not? You can do that if you want. And so that's what's happening. That's one thing. That's one everything that's happening.
That's a big thing, man. I think moving is one of the most stressful things for a lot of people. Then, like, on top of that, you're not really moving. You're gonna be like digital nomads, but you're not upset with your nice man landlord, or I call him a landlord. But you're not upset with him, which makes you literally a digital nomad. You're not mad. You're happy to have this opportunity, and then your mom's gonna give you the Airbnb, but only for your family, only for you, which means it's an Airbnb, HEIR.
Yes.
Just for Myq. That's what I picked.
I really appreciate that. I did once. I was like, did I tweet that? I tweeted once that there's nothing in the rule book that says that you can't open your doors and let a dog stay in your home, and that's called an air mattress. Something like that. But also, you just I've called myself not a nomad, but a yes glad as well. The opposite of a nomad, or the same as a nomad. Nomad equals yes glad. But I do think you just reminded me that moving. I mean, I know that moving is one of the most stressful things you can do. It's up there with the kind of like stress that even a death can cause in a family sometimes. But and I think that it's really important for us to look and explore why we were lied to by that famous song with there's at least maybe there's only one person in the world when they said, I like to move it, but most people do not.
I think CC Peniston made a song called Keep On Moving, Don't Stop. And so that's what it felt like when I was in New York. I had to move like 3 different Airbnbs in my time there. And you kind of do get used to it. I think, that's the thing about New York you're always hearing is like the living situations, because space is at a premium. People are moving around. People are having roommates. The fact that you had a place for 8 years uninterrupted is big time up there. Like you were living the life.
Right.
You're right. They always say you don't know what you've got till it's gone, and now I know what I've got, and it's not even gone yet. You don't know what you've got until like a month and a half until it's gone, and then you can really appreciate it, even though it's an explosion. But it's been really helpful to my girlfriend and I have many books, hundreds of books, and like some of them are really meaningful. Like some of them are books that I haven't read yet, but I've just I collect books. I'm like, oh, I want we go to used bookstores, like some of we gotten real cheap or free, or being like, oh, I want to read this. And I'm really sort of drilling down on I definitely on an infinite timeline. If there was infinite time and infinite space, I would keep all of these books in that infinite place. A little poem that I just wrote. And given that there's not that, at least in this incarnation, in this human incarnation, and certainly in this apartment's incarnation, I'm like, well, do you guys remember when Stephen Colbert did the White House press correspondence dinner roast of George W. Bush in somewhere between, in the mid 2000s? And my favorite line that I think of to this day, he said, George W. Bush, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, George W. Bush is like a man of principle. He's a loyal man. He's like, he believes on Wednesday the same thing he believed on Monday, no matter what happened on Tuesday. And that's a really valuable thing to remember, because like I'm going through these books and I'm like, first, do I think I will read this? Like, maybe. When will I read it? I've owned it for 6 years. Will I read it in the next 6 years? Maybe. Like, could I, some of them, get it out of the library? Absolutely. Some of them, I'm like, really being honest with myself. Which are the ones that I want to read? Which are the ones that I want to read? And I'm having the experience of like, I just bought this one. Like,
now that you're physically putting them in storage, there's literally a weight and a cost to these decisions. Like the faith that you had, I want to have the faith in me that I had when I bought the book. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I had that kind of faith in me at all times. Like the other day I was driving home and I saw like a homeless person and they had a dog, right? And, you know, normally all these hack comedians will make jokes, you know, like, oh, you're homeless, why you got a dog or whatever. But I was like, man, I can't keep a plant alive in my house. That homeless person believes in themselves in a way that I don't. Like, I wish, I'm envious of their ability to be like, I don't necessarily need to know exactly where I'm going to sleep tonight to know that I can take care of this dog. And I feel like the same. Yeah, I feel like that's the same way I am with books. Like when that is my most optimistic self, is me buying a book. Yes. Because I'm like, yep, gonna knock this out, gonna read this, and then it's sitting on the shelf.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially right now we live like 10-minute walk from a library. And I'm like, you know, since like, I think I only really started getting books from the library during like since the pandemic began, like on a regular basis. I was like, I like having a book, but I really like there's an Ani DeFranco lyric that I love that my girlfriend does not love. So close your ears, don't listen, don't think about it. But it's my body's on loan. I got it between my mom and some maggots. And I like thinking about that, especially because I'm like, well, I'm on loan from the universe, this incarnation, and the books are as well. So it's like, you know, and owning, what even is owning? Like, it's like there's things here, and like you said, they take up time, they take up space. Time and space both are money. I'm so money I don't even know it. I don't even own the movie Swingers. But this is all to say, I was picking up one book and I was like, but I just bought this. And I had this idea of like, but how could I have just bought it and now I'm going to sell it or give it away or get rid of it? It seems like it's like the sunk cost fallacy. It's like, I can't do that. I need to carry it around and have it cost me more money and time and energy and space. But the circumstances, the Monday, like what happened on Tuesday in the George Bush, Stephen Colbert metaphor here, what happened on Tuesday is we learned that we must move. So on Monday, I was like, I can have all these books. And on Wednesday, I can be like, I can have all these books, but the version of myself that didn't know what was about to happen, who like, he wasn't wrong to buy all the books, but it would be foolish and impractical of me to continue to hold on to the identity I have from a few months ago as someone who doesn't need to move. But because a person who needs to move, it's like, you know when animals like you know the expression like to like, you know, you shit a brick, you were scared. When you're scared, like some animals really do shit when they have to escape a predator because it literally lightens their load. They unload and then they can run faster because they can be more aerodynamic with less in their system. So what I'm saying is I just have to shit a brick of books, you know?
Yeah. The predator in this is the real estate.
Yes.
It's a
capitalism. Yeah.
Yeah. Capitalism is the predator. We're always shitting bricks, lightening a load. Where do you think you'll put your books? Like, will you just give them away? Do you have one of those like white people book libraries sitting in the middle of the street, you know?
Thank you for asking. I do live in a neighborhood full of white people book libraries, which I believe is We call them tiny libraries. We don't like to, call the non-spade a non-spade, But here's what I've been doing. So for the past many years, since I lived in Boston, there's a bookstore up there called independent bookstore called the Harvard Bookstore, and they have like a huge used section in the basement. And like the last time I moved, and since then, I've just every time I go to Boston, which I do like a few times a year, I would like store up my books, bring them there, sell them there, get store credit, give them like, thousands of dollars worth of books, and then come away with, dozens of dollars worth of books. And and then for the books they don't take, I would go to the Strand in New York City, like I think it's the biggest bookstore in New York that I know of, at least, that they have new and used books, and they will always take all of the, like, even if they don't buy the books, they buy some of them from you, but then they're like, if you don't want to take these away, like we will get rid of them in some way. And so now I've started selling a lot more of my books at the Strand. But here, finally, the headliner of the answer of this question, those were just the openers. I will tell you this. It's funny. The person in the Think Pretty Smart in the comments who said store credit to get more books. Yes, but you don't have to get them now. But here's the thing: is I told my mom, we're almost there. This is a guest spot on the way to the headliner of the answer to this question. But I was on the phone with my mom while I was waiting in line to sell books at the Strand, and my mom was like, "Oh, I actually have like a bunch of books that you could sell as well if you want." And I was like, "Mom, we're trying to get books out right now. I'm not trying to like. I am trying to sell books, but I'm trying to sell the books I have. Now, I'm not trying to go into business as a bookseller currently." Though, and here is a quick fun thing about my mom and books as well is my mom, she sends me email forwards, and I love her and I'm grateful for them. And every once in a while, it's like a jacket. She bought me a jacket, or I bought a jacket, and she's like, then starts selling me advertisements for other jackets, like Amazon. It's like, "Oh, you bought one of these. You're the kind of person that buys one of these." I'm like, I have one of these. And so Barnes & Noble is particularly insidious in the way that they have managed to get around my spam filter by getting my mom to email me their advertisements. So, and now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the thing that I'm doing with my books that I think is the most interesting is since I think Saturday and yesterday, I had a show in New Jersey City and I had a show in Providence, Rhode Island. And I normally, after the show, sell CDs, download codes, and posters lately. And I now brought a bunch of books. On Saturday, I just did a show called Sacred Comedy. So I brought a handful, like a dozen to 2 dozen books that I have that I'm like, I've read some, my girlfriend's read some, we just have amassed them, but they're in the spiritual realm, books by like Buddhist nuns and monks, and like valuable like meditation guides. And so I was like, after the show, if you buy a CD, if you buy a poster, if you buy anything from me, you can also take a book for free. And so there's people that are like, I kind of just want the book. I'm like, well, if you buy one of my albums and if you buy one of my posters, then you can have this book for free. Because I mean, I'm sure I could sell them the book as well. But I'm just like, look, free book with cost of supporting my comedy. And it's been really valuable. I feel like it's cool. Like I get to shit these books away, and one man's shit is another person's treasure. And so people get a cool book, they get to help us unburden ourselves and empty our home, and they get a comedy album or a poster. So that those are and also so to answer your question in full, at some point we'll have gotten rid of all the books that we want to at bookstores, at comedy shows, and free tiny white people libraries, and or just on the street. Like my neighborhood in Brooklyn, people just like often, like it's like a bookstore, it's like a thrift shop on the street frequently.
So I have many thoughts. First, when you book a gig, you also gig a book. Like you're
Thank you.
Barnes and Noble was spamming you, but then your mom started sending you Barnes and Noble. I feel like spam from your mom. Spam. Okay, we just invented a new thing.
Yes.
Your mom is spamming you, and then I think the tiny libraries that white people have should be called Lil Braries.
Lil Braries is perfect. Oh my god.
Oh, that's adorable.
It is adorable. That's nice.
Take a book, leave a book.
Yes.
Karen, me and Mike, we get to talking, and I know it's hard to get a word in edgewise. Anything you need to drop before we go to the next thing? Just want to make sure you're not feeling left out.
No, I'm not feeling left out either. I love to hear Myq tell us his stories. You're one of my favorite guests because out the side we don't have to do a lot of work. And we have a 10-minute rant. I was like, okay, cool.
I like that Karen's like, we don't have to do a lot of work. I run the show and I have news articles and things to get to. So I do a lot, of work. But
Karen and I don't have to do a lot of work. It's if I had to talk, yeah, exactly.
I'm just setting you guys up to do your thing. But let's get into some news of the day. I like when Myq comes by, and then we get to talk about some topical things. There's news that's happened. The biggest news right now. Oh wait, actually, you know what? In order to know where to put a commercial later, I'm gonna play like a musical interlude. So let me play some music real quick, and we'll be back in like 20 seconds. All right, we're back from those ads.
That beat goes hard.
I love that beat. That's one of my favorite beats. Shout out to Infrared Crypto. So many talented listeners to the show. The biggest news: Dominion and Fox News have reached a $787.5 million settlement in the defamation lawsuit. The trial was literally going on like now, and this is like kind of breaking news. And it was looking bad for Fox. Like their internal emails were being exposed. It was becoming obvious that they knew how damaging the stuff was, but it was just too profitable. One of the things I'll be watching with this is a lot of times when there's a settlement, that's because they've agreed to like certain conditions.
Yes.
And that'll probably end up taking on the form of like Fox News having to like either apologize or routinely put some type of thing on the air of like, yeah, we were wrong, we fucked up, we said this thing happened and it didn't happen. But yeah, it's I mean, I guess it's better than them losing the case if you're Fox News, like, because I don't think they had a case to win. But
no,
what a like, this is, to me, this is a huge moment for like the truth, because it's just something that we have lost, especially in the news realm of conservative news, for like the last probably, I don't know, 10 years, if not longer. We've just it's just kind of been like truth optional, like, I don't feel like telling the truth. That one's not on my side. And now to have someone actually bring a lawsuit and win, I think is huge.
I think that I might be wrong, but this is my hypothesis, my thesis. I think that they're going to have to publicly apologize. Which is why they settled, because I think if they'd have been like, nah, we ain't selling, they'd be like, okay, fuck you, we're gonna go for the whole bill. We're gonna make you pay. Because the thing is, you was big and bad and bold and went out and shouted it in public. So guess what? Apologize with that same energy. Like, we told y'all that there was nothing wrong with our systems, but y'all was like, yes, it is. Y'all making shit up. So if I was them, you put like this, I'm old school. You show your ass in public. You apologize in public.
Right. Myq, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree that if you show your ass in public, then you do apologize in public. I mean, I'm glad that, like, often what happens is, when like during a presidential election like cycle, when there's like all kinds of lies being told, like, on like the debate stages, right? And then you'll see like there'll be headlines of people get to see the thing that is said that isn't true, but then like the retraction is often like, the next day in print instead of on TV, and it's on page 7, and like hardly and people only get to hear like the loud headline. So I think it would be fair and balanced, as Fox News, I understand, is like for them to have to like you said, like have on their show just as loud and just as like as much airtime as they dedicated to the lies. Like I'd say double to the truth, because like as you have to do enough to undo it, and then the real story. So be like so lie, unlie, truth is what I would say. And but yeah, I mean, I don't even understand like these numbers. It is like, you know, almost $800 million, which sounds like a lot. I think they wanted, you know, $1.5 billion or so. And so it seems like it's, you know, just a gam. They're like, you know, probably, I mean, who among us wouldn't, in the face of having to pay $1.5 billion, if we could escape with a guaranteed only half of that, be like, oh, well, we got off easy.
It's also weird because you know that there's conversations taking place before they even go to trial. There's and you know, Dominion, I'm sure, was willing to take like some money and an apology early.
Yes,
but it feels like this is just the I don't know if it's like a TV lawyer thing or what, but it feels like this is the way it goes. Is you just go, no, I don't think so. I'll just take it to trial. Impossible, no way. And then as soon as you get into trial, it's like, all right, guys, it's time to settle. All right, I don't know what I was thinking. It was like me who bought the book a month ago. Fox News must have felt about this case.
Yeah, I have a new idea specifically that somebody in the chat said say it every MF show. I like that MF is abbreviated, but bitch is not. And say it every motherfucking show, B. And I think it should be like the way that warnings are on cigarettes, you know, that there's like a little skull and crossbones, and be like, look, 1 out of 3 chance this might lead to lung cancer. So just maybe a chyron or like a little thing in the lower left-hand corner of Fox News. It'd be like, you know, may or may not contain the truth, just like all the time.
Breaking news, we were lying.
Breaking news. We've been breaking news for a long time.
Broken news. So I think that's a good thing. They put out a statement. Fox News said, this settlement reflects Fox's continued commitment to the highest journalistic standards. We are hopeful that our decision to resolve this dispute with Dominion amicably, instead of the acrimony of a divisive trial, allows the country to move forward from these issues. I'm gonna be honest, I was not moving forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I wasn't waiting on the conclusion of this trial.
and you know what? It's been a running joke all week. But who wrote? I think ChatGPT wrote this.
That apology. Yeah.
Right. Because it's like, who is we? Who is we that need to move on past this moment?
I mean, like the very thing that you just said, that they said, like that this is our continuing, you know, commitment to the truth. Like, well, it's definitely not a continuing. There was some sort of breakdown at one point. There had to be like, yeah, we've been telling the truth the whole time, including now in our apology for not telling the truth, or for paying these people that we lied about. Like it, but look, we came clean because you made us. So you got to give us some credit.
It's literally impossible for them to be here if they were committed to telling the truth all the time.
Right.
That's hilarious. In other news, there are people apparently who go to visit Auschwitz, which is, of course, a concentration camp from the Holocaust. And Auschwitz had to put out a reminder to people to say, stop posing for pictures like influencers. Yes.
And it's one of the things that really frustrates me, because they do this on plantations too. And you're like, hey, don't do it. Like, why are y'all having weddings?
Well, they'll have weddings. I think, first of all, plantation weddings is super whack, but there's almost a built-in excuse to be smiling. If you're the kind of person that had a wedding at a plantation, you're gonna be smiling in the pictures. There's only one reason people visit Auschwitz.
Right.
Like, there's not even like a mixed message of like, well, some people think it's like a good time. no, it's not a good time for anybody. And so yeah, they show people they're walking the tracks and posing and taking pictures, walking the tracks.
Because they think this shit is fucking cool.
This like, did they not go inside? How do they know not to do this?
Because people are dumb, and everybody thinks that everything they do is a social media moment versus actually just taking in the environment. And like we live in a society now where my personal experience like this, it will be a personal experience for me,
right?
You know, for something like this. But for a lot of people, they want to, you know, kind of show the outside, which I'm pretty sure they don't mind. But they was like, just take pictures. Don't be posing, you know, like you taking a family reunion video.
Put, when you come to the Auschwitz Museum, remember you are at a site where over 1 million people were killed. Respect their memory. There are better places to learn how to walk on a balance beam than the site which symbolizes deportation of hundreds of thousands to their deaths.
Right.
That is hilarious. That's the official Auschwitz account, like who's really like that's so funny. That reminds me of, I don't know the name of the newspaper, but there's an Israeli newspaper from years ago, and I know even Israel, there's so many nuanced things going on there right now, and like including people rising up, the Israeli people rising up to, you know, combat the policies of the Israeli government, the same way that, you know, the U.S. government doesn't represent all of the views of the U.S. people, the Israeli government doesn't represent all the views of the Israeli people. But so there was a cool Israeli newspaper years ago that I learned about. They responded to, and I think it was an Iranian newspaper. There was some anti-Semitic newspaper, and again, not all Iranians, but there was a particular like anti-Semitic newspaper that put out a call for Holocaust jokes, not run by Jews, not about Jews. They're like, let's have a Holocaust joke contest. And so in response, the Israeli newspaper was like, oh, if you're gonna have a Holocaust joke competition, well, in response, we're gonna have a Holocaust joke competition. And so that I thought that was like a hilarious, classy thing to do. Like, you know, like, oh, you're like an Eminem 8 Mile kind of thing. Like, you're gonna make fun of me, you're gonna roast me, you're gonna rap battle me. Well, I'm gonna do it first. I'm gonna say everything about me. Like, you know, I can make fun of, you know, I can say things about my mom, but you can't say things about my mom. Like, and so I love that Auschwitz in this very, I mean, it's such a one of the most serious things in the world, the Holocaust, and Auschwitz is like, please respect us, and making a joke while doing it, which is like, I feel like classic Jewish, you know?
Yeah, it feels almost like when when someone is funny but they're also like mad for real. And you know what I mean? Like, you know, those people that are like, they're funny all the time, but they're mad sometimes, and even their funny is fun, even their mad is funny.
Yes.
It felt like that, where it's like almost like, look at this motherfucking thing, it's a balance beam. You know, you're like, yeah, why does you think it's a balance beam? That is ridiculous. But it is also offensive, but it's also patently ridiculous. And a lot of offensive things are patently ridiculous. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing even really, there's so few things on the scope of the Holocaust or genocide or what's going on, what happened at Auschwitz. But like, can you even imagine like an influencer like posing at a funeral, you know, like going like, just that's kind of what it is. It's, you know, it's like a thing that represents mass death, and people are like, but can't we?
And it only represents one thing. Like, it's just one of the few things in like that humanity has decided, like, this just means one thing. Like, even in our most divided time right now, where everyone thinks things mean what they want them to mean, not Auschwitz. Like, we're like, no, that's the one place we know what it is. If you bought the ticket, or you like if you got to the museum,
you know what
you know what happens in there. No one's in there dancing and shit.
TikTok,
all right,
Auschwitz.
Let's go.
Yeah.
It's a hype house.
And you know what? The thing about it is, in those pics, maybe it's just me, I see no brown people.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point.
So I guess we know how to behave.
I guess I mean, I would assume that we're there's probably a lot of reasons there aren't like a lot of brown people there. But also there's the fact that like the kind of it's like a catch-22. It's kind of like the Black History Museum. The kind of person that really needs to visit might be the kind of person that would think you can do balance beam on a fucking railroad. You know, it's like maybe once you take a trip in and you come back out, you just delete those. You know, you just don't post those. You go, oh, I get it now. But I somehow these people made it all the way in and made it all the way out, and then somehow thought I should put this on the ground.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. That should be a great policy. Like, yeah, take all the pictures you want, but only post after when you don't want.
Only post after you leave.
Yeah, everyone should have all the pictures should have a caption like edit. Y'all, I went into the museum after this. My bad.
Edit.
That's on me. Marques Houston, we talked about him before. He's a guy who is under scrutiny because he married a woman much younger than him. And this time he's spoken up again. He told Page 6 that the reason he doesn't want to marry a woman his age is because they come with baggage and kids. A red flag to me was always with a woman that had a kid. Nothing against single women, but single mothers with children are a red flag to me. He met his wife, Maya Dickey, in 2018 through a mutual friend. He said, I tip my hat and respect the women that are raising children on their own. But when I grew up, I never really wanted to have kids. He made headlines in 2020 when at the age of 38, he married, it was engaged to a 19-year-old, and he publicly defended their relationship. His wife is now 22, and they have a child together, and he's now 41. To which I think if they ever break up, he's her baggage. Now, you know, when she becomes an older woman, if they don't make it, she's got kids and an ex-husband that are clearly baggage.
And this right here frustrates me because I understand people have personal preference about if people, you know, with kids and all that type of stuff. But my thing with this is all it does is confirm what a lot of people are saying. You like people young and dumb and stupid that haven't experienced life yet. Right. You want somebody that you can control, that you can manipulate, that you can mold and shape into what you want them to be. You don't want somebody that's independent thinking that might tell you no, that might tell you they don't like that might actually voice something contrary. They might actually force you to fucking grow up. You don't want to deal with somebody like that. Mm-hmm. You want to deal with somebody who has not experienced enough life yet to actually know who they are. So if I don't know who I am, I don't have the capability, and I don't have the parameters around me to go, okay, these are my barriers. You know, these are the things I can and cannot deal with, or I will and won't deal with. Mm-hmm. You can only get those things by just living.
Right.
And so all people are saying is like, hey, dog, we were saying it was a problem because she hadn't lived life yet. Like you snapped her up before she could go out there and just experience life to find out who she is. And when you say shit like this, it just confirms that, okay, we was right about you when you make these comments. And on top of that, it's very insulting, particularly being a Black woman. It's very insulting for you to say this because people act like when women have kids, they have them by themselves.
Right.
These kids don't just fucking appear out of nowhere. It's a man somewhere that's attached. So the dad is no responsibility. He can just do whatever he want to. But the person that decides to stay a lot of time, which is the woman, actually gets a lot of the blame and a lot of the fault for it, regardless of what happened. And on top of that, they could be in a good relationship. There's people that break up and they have great relationships with their significant other or father or whoever. And so for me, I'm sorry going to change. It's just really frustrating to actually just listen to you say this.
Right.
It was wonderful to listen to you say that. I was gonna say I think exactly the same thing in the exact same way. So thank you for voicing my. I think you're exactly right, and I feel like an example of the kind of thing you're talking about, the perfect example. There is no other perfect example than Eminem, who truly spent a lot of his career being angry at his mom in very creative ways, but there's one album some years ago where I feel like he had a song that basically apologized to his mom. I think it was on like the Marshall Mathers LP2 maybe, where he was sort of like rehashing, but like having grown and been like, kind of came to the point of like, oh, like I was mad at you because you were the one that was there. Like I couldn't yell at my dad because he wasn't there, but I'm like truly much angrier at my absent dad, but I can't yell at my absent dad and have it do anything for me. So that's why he's like, I'm sorry that I yelled at you, my present mom, doing the best that you could with having been left by
I think I remember that song. I think it was like, I'm sorry, mama.
Yeah, it's like Headlights, I think was the name of it, maybe, with the guy from Fun. Yeah.
What he also goes on to say, I would talk to my dad a lot, and he would always tell me to have your own kids because you never know what the baby daddies are about. So if you're gonna have kids, make sure it's with a woman that never has had kids. So that was always my red flag, and a woman with an attitude. I don't like women with funky attitudes.
A woman
who you don't like women. I don't know a woman who don't have a funky attitude every now and then. You think we just wake up like this every day smiling because society has told y'all to say bitch smile all the time? Get out of here. I don't care what kind of woman you are. Everybody has a funky attitude.
I don't know that. I maybe he's thinking about like a constantly funky attitude, but I've noticed that a lot of times people's attitudes are in response to the people around them.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. There's
don't come out of nowhere.
It's like every time I come around, you got a bad attitude. It's like,
it might be you.
There's my girlfriend Rini shared with me this. I forget where this is from, and maybe she'll come in and let me know. But there's a story of like a family comes to a town. They are like, hey, we're thinking of moving in here. What kind of people do you have around here? Like, what are the people like? And they're like, well, what were the people like back where you came from? And they're like, oh, they were kind of mean, and like they would talk about you behind your back, and they were backbiting, all these things, and we didn't like them at all. And they're like, yeah, well, you might find some people like that here, and they're like, okay, we'll move on. And then another family comes and they're like, what are the people like here? And they're like, what were the people like where you came from? And they're like, they were actually very kind and generous, and we were sad to move because we made so many wonderful connections with all the wonderful people in the community that were just so compassionate. And they're like, well, I think you're going to find people like that here as well, because we all project. And so, of course, like, do you know this thing? You ever watch Justified, this TV show?
I know of the show. I haven't watched it.
I love it. There's one, I'm not going to spoil. I'll spoil one joke. That was just, I love it so much. The main character played by Timothy Oliphant, Raylan Givens, I think. He says, if you meet an asshole in the morning, you met one asshole. If you meet assholes all day, you're the asshole. And so I feel like that I feel like it doesn't even make sense to have a type that you're interested in like prescriptively, because you can be like descriptive and look like, oh, look, as it turns out, look, there were a lot of people that had some things in common, but I don't even think that really happens that much. But like everyone is so different that like if you close yourself off to like a person with a kid or a person who had an attitude one day that was different, that like you said, Karen, I feel like it, maybe an attitude just means like somebody who will disagree with you when you're wrong, Right.
Yeah. And also, like, I mean, to me, if you close off yourself that way, you're always going to be right, because you're not giving it a chance. Like, if you're like, I don't like women that got kids, it's like, well, you're right. You shouldn't date women that have kids because clearly you're going to be fucked up about it. So why even bring some woman and her kids into that situation?
Right.
I also find it interesting that he is he's approaching all of this as if he's the pristine catch. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm a 40-year-old man. Of course, every woman wants me. He also said women that are my age, they kind of have a different outlook on life. Like a lot of women my age are very independent. They're very like, I don't need a man to do this for me because I can do it for myself. I come from a generation that I love to provide for my wife. There's a lot of women my age I've dated. May have baggage, they may have kids, they may not. There's so many different women I've been with throughout my life. It just so happens to be that this one, Maya, caught my heart. Everything that I prayed for, everything that I wanted in a woman, she came with. Although she was young, I'm young in spirit. The immature, remember, that's the name of the group.
I'm a baby, yeah.
Immature memory. Yeah. I also like that he basically described a child. Like when he's like, women my age can do things for themselves. I need someone that depends on me.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like he's saying two completely opposite things also. He's like, I want to take care of someone, but I don't want someone who is taking care of that. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why don't you want to be with, if it's an independent woman who has a child who doesn't need you, then what are you complaining about? What are you talking about? It doesn't are you, because I feel like the reason that most people, if you don't want kids, then don't have kids, right? If you don't want to be with someone with kids, like you're allowed to not be with someone with kids. Like, no need to judge and make it like a blanket statement, be like, hey, everyone out there, if you have kids, I'm not interested. Just date people who don't have kids if you want to date people who don't have kids. But the reason why people don't want to date people with kids sometimes is they're like, well, maybe I don't want to be a parent, maybe I'm not ready to be, maybe I don't feel responsible, maybe I don't want to take care of people. But this guy's then turning around and saying, like, what I want is to take care of people. I want to take care of people, but I don't want to be with somebody with a kid because you'd have to take care of them. Like, what are you?
Right. I want to be with a kid, not she has a kid.
Right.
Also, he goes on to say, in the immature days, once again, that's the name of the group he was in, we would have light-skinned girls in our music videos. Then people would question, why can't you get a black girl? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I only like light-skinned girls. Then the plus size girls will come and get me. I was like, man, I can't catch a break. I like that he doesn't think any of his problems are self-inflicted.
Whoo. At all. And just listening to him, he to me, he feels like a Facebook meme where you go thoughts. He feels like a long ass Twitter thread with the ashy ass niggas that be posting shit online. Like everything you said, you're checking off all of those boxes.
Yeah, it's very toxic. It's like, but it's like Mike said, it's like, why am I meeting assholes all day? It's like, bro, you don't see.
Right. And on top of that, you don't see a lot of this is ego. Like, your ego is so big and so huge that you will not allow somebody to not need you, and not only him, it's a lot of men that are like that, just from being observed.
I think also like it's a crutch, right? Because it's a shortcut. What you're thinking is, in your insecurity, if a person has to need me, then they can't leave me and I can't ever not be in control, which is what, at least that's how I'm receiving what he's saying, is a very much like, I need a woman that can't do things on her own because then she won't need me. And any woman that doesn't need me with the way that I am would not deal with me. I need her to need me, or else I cannot truly be in control of this relationship. And because I think in a healthy way, at our best, a lot of us would hope when we're in a romantic relationship that we are doing things that the other person feels that they need. You would hope to like, I don't think that's a bad impetus unless it comes from like the insecurity of, I want to control you. I hope that Karen does go, I am hungry and Rod is making lunch and I'm expecting to have lunch every day. I like to be needed in that way. What I wouldn't want is for it to be like, if I don't do this, Karen can't or won't eat, because to me that's like a level of like, that's like having a child. It is literally like what a baby would have to do. Is like, a baby can't eat without me. I don't need that level of being needed.
Yeah. And it's also,
go ahead, Karen.
No, go ahead, Mike. You got it.
Oh, and also,
okay, you know what? Go Karen, then Mike.
Yes, and also I think for one of the things for me And I guess I keep talking about this because I'm very sensitive to this speak. And it's one of the things where it just irritates me when you hear men go, well, I don't need an independent woman. Like, being an independent woman is just this devastating thing. And that when you go, well, a woman don't need me. Well, it's one of those things, is partially y'all fault because of patriarchy. Like, like men create the problem, and then men get mad because now they're victims of a problem that they created. Because it's one of those things where for a lot of women, particularly you get older, you've been through enough shit and you've dealt with enough people that you be like, fuck it, I can do it by myself and I can do it on my own. And and a lot of times for a lot of women, it's out of necessity. It's not because you want to. A lot of times it's because society wraps its minds and force you to. And for a lot of women, they don't want to lower their standards and take anything for some dick. I can go get some double D's and go about my business, put it up, and I don't have to deal with it past that. I ain't got to feed it, take care of it, none of that. If it's just about the quote unquote satisfaction.
Right.
And it's one of those things where you need to bring more than just your money and your penis.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of dudes think, I walk in the door, I have this, and you should just be satisfied and worship it. And that's not so. The requirements are higher, and they get mad because the requirements are higher, and they don't want to meet the standard or whatever that woman's standard is. And that's not funny. Sometimes you might be outside your league. Men don't ever think they're outside their league when it comes to women. They think, I have a penis, I have my right to any woman of my choosing. That's not always so.
Word.
Myq.
Yeah, I have 3 quick things. I'll try quick. One, from earlier when we were talking about this guy's, victim mentality, like, I can't catch a break, when I'm rude to fat people, then they get mad at me. When I'm rude to darker skinned people, then they get mad at me. Like, why won't it? Reminds me of, there's a comedian I love, Andy Kindler. And years ago, when Carlos Mencia was very famous and popular, Andy had like an impression of Carlos Mencia that went like this. He was like, oh, so I'm the bad guy because I said the racist thing? Like that. That's what this guy sounds like to me. I don't know him well, but he's like, what? Me? I'm the one. I keep stepping on everyone's feet and they keep complaining about it. Why won't they shut up? So that's one thing. Another real quick, people in the chat have been bringing up the concept of the alpha male, which if you look up in like the actual like literature of science, the way that alphas arise in like wolf packs and I think in other primates, it's not the biggest, strongest that can beat up everyone. It's the one who can like gather a coalition of like-minded, who's like can get along with everyone and can help if there is some like attack from within or without, to be like, okay, we got this. What can we do together to unite? It's like, a uniter, not a strong divider. And the other thing, just I feel like the final thing that I was the idea of being needed is, if you want to be in a relationship, like we all we're as humans, and I think most animals as well, but certainly as humans, we're a communal species. We're communal creatures. Very few of us could survive on our own. We need often a community, often a family, often a partner. Like, not everyone needs all of those things. You can live in a village on your own. You can live in the woods if you want to, but most of us need some help, some human contact. And so I think the thing that's noteworthy about this guy and what he's saying, it's like, it's not wrong to want to be needed or to need someone, but in most functional, optimal relationships, it's not that Karen needs Rod and Rod doesn't need Karen. It's both. Like in my relationship, like I provide things that for my girlfriend, and she provides things for me. Like the way if you had like two like playing cards like leaning up against each other, or even just two people, you can like, if we can both lean on each other, we can both back to back like count on each other, and like where one of us would fall, we're both like doing a trust fall against each other all the time. And in that way, it's trust and no fall, because we're both holding each other up and lifting each other up and providing things for each other that we don't have everything in our own experience, but you guys get it. Like we provide to each other.
Yeah.
And there are relationships where, look, if you want to have a relationship where one person provides everything and the other person like can consensually, like, proactively agree that they're like, oh yeah, but you both have to give, like, it has to be giving on both sides.
Something. Yeah.
Right.
I think the thing for me too is when people talk about relationships and they talk about being needed in this way, it feels like a power argument and not necessarily a reciprocal situation. And what it makes me think is like you feel like you have a scarcity mindset of I have to be needed because you're afraid that you're not wanted. Because I think if you're wanted, there's a different feeling. Like if you do things that make someone want you, right? Because even if you think it's a need, but if you're cooking every day, if you're cleaning, if you make the most money or whatever, if you're how you show up for someone when they need like emotional support, things that like there's things that make you want a person. Absence make the heart go fonder because you want to be around that person. And I think when you take that out of the equation and you just go, well, I got to make sure this person can't eat if I'm not around. I got to make sure this person can't, sign documents to get their own stuff. I don't want a person that can do things for themselves. What you're really saying is I don't bring anything to the table if you don't need me. And a 40-year-old woman, she won't need me because she's made it 40 years without me. And she definitely not going to want me because I'm doing a lot of unwantable shit. Like I have a lot of fucked up opinions.
Right. And you're telling on yourself. And to go back on what Myq was saying about alpha males, one thing I realized about alpha males, guess what they don't say? I'm an alpha male. A lot of times they just appear and they just be their presence will let you know that they're alpha male.
I don't even really fucking believe in that shit. Like and it's weird. Like I don't know if you had this experience too, Myq. Every time I'm around men that bring up alpha male stuff, and they're not, and I'm not around these men who are like pro alpha male things. Like they're not preaching the stuff. They're not like Andrew Tate. But every time I'm in a situation where this comes up, and I'll be like, yeah, I don't really believe in that. And they'll be like, that's because you're alpha male. I'm like, I don't even see this as a compliment.
Well,
like I wasn't fishing for a compliment, dude. I honestly think this is stupid.
And they're going to ride. You can't see it.
You keep on doing the opposite of digging your grave. You keep on building your monument. My girlfriend can hear us in the other room, or she can hear me. And she shared that I believe in primates, like the alphas among monkeys are the monkeys with the most serotonin, who are the calmest ones, who can help everyone else be calm, because that's the mark of, a positive society. A positive community is not one that's like ready for war at all times and, on edge and like I could defeat anyone, but people who can, defeat their own inner demons and be chill. And so, I'm so sorry to agree with these assholes that are telling you, but it does sound like you, Rod, are, by this definition that you don't believe in, a chill, calm.
God damn it, son of a
but yeah, for most people, like to say that someone's an alpha, because most of the time an alpha, like, there's Brian Regan has a joke about Sully, the hero who landed the plane in the Hudson and people didn't die. And his joke is like, they're like, that guy's a hero. Then they talk to him, they interview him, and he's like, are you a hero? And he's like, oh, I'm no hero. I'm just doing it what anyone would. Like, he said he is a hero. He said he wasn't one, so he is one. So that's like the mark.
You're the leader now. It's like, no, I would prefer not to be. It used to happen to us on the podcast when people would call us activists because they would want to like give us this like this lofty title of like, the work you're doing with your podcast. This is like good for, you're an activist, Rod. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. And they'd be like, don't say that. No, you're just being humble. I'm like, I literally feel like I'm not an activist.
Yes, I see what they do, and I'm not doing that.
And because the other part is like there comes an expectation when you put on a label like that, and I respect the label. It's like if I call myself a stand-up comedian, I've never been on stage, I'd be like, yeah, I haven't done the thing, and I think it's okay that I'm not a stand-up comedian.
That's why I'm a sit-down comedian.
Yeah, but you know, in certain conversations, there's stand-up comedians who'll say like, nah, man, don't say that about yourself. I was like, no, we're being literal. This is a textbook definition. I don't get on stage and do stand-up. I think that's a big thing. So I kind of feel that happens to me with some of these labels, you know, whether it be the alpha male thing or the activist thing. Yeah. And I know it's coming from a good place because it's they think it's a compliment, but I don't need it. I'm good.
Well, if I may say, what a brilliant activist statement you just made there as well. I want to truly, I hear you, and I do love, you know, I think it's the Maya Angelou quote, or perhaps a paraphrasing of it. You know, if someone shows you or tells you who they are, believe them the first time. But also, if someone tells you who you are and you don't agree, you don't have to believe them. Like, but what you could say, I want to offer, I want to tell you a story about some advice that I got once that I know people don't love to get unsolicited advice, but here's a tool that has been valuable to me in my toolkit. One time, you know, Jesse Joyce, the comedian, Jesse. Jesse, who I feel like, you know, I know y'all are, you know, aligned in the Keith and the Girl world. And I remember Jesse is one of the comedians who years ago was like, one of the most vocal, telling Keith that he wasn't a stand-up comedian as much as he would be if he got on stage more than once a year, because to Jesse, like Jesse would never call you a stand-up comedian. He might say you're a comedian, a podcast comedian, a funny person. Like there's many, I mean, the main point is that you get to determine what your identity is. You get to determine how you identify as a human in the world. I just listened to my friend Chris Duffy has a podcast called How to Be a Better Human. And he had on this non-binary artist named Alok. And Alok, they're a poet, they're a comedian, they're this beautiful, like, you know, gender activist in a way, but they're basically like, the only label I take for myself is artist, because it's the only one that can contain all of the chaos of all of the other things that I do and the ways people perceive me. And so Jesse, years ago, in 2010, I had my Comedy Central half hour come out. And in late 2009, when I recorded it, at some point after the recording, Jesse saw me and was like, hey, I heard about the recording. I heard you're doing a half hour. Congratulations. Great job. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know I talked at him for a couple minutes, going through, like, spilling out everything. I don't know if you can imagine me talking for a while, but I spilled out all of these concerns that I had, because like, oh yeah, it was good, though there were a few minutes where every once in a while I said something not the way that I intended, but I took it back and they like did it again. I think they can edit it, and I'm pretty sure it'll turn out well. I think the audience was endeared to me even more. And after I went on for a while, he was like, hey man, you know, you maybe could just say thanks. And I was like, that's very valuable. Thank you for that. And so I've thought about that for more than a decade, that like, because it's the artist's burden to know what might have been, is what saxophonist Charles Burns, I believe, said. Like, when we do a show, when you do something, like, somebody could be hearing your show for the first time and you might be like, oh, that wasn't my favorite. It wasn't my best. I know what it could have been. But to them, it's probably 90% the same as any of the others. Like, they're not going to notice what you notice. And like, why? It's kind of like doing a disservice to your fan to be like, no, it wasn't that. And this is a slightly different thing where somebody's like, you are this, and you don't have to agree with them, but you could just say, like, saying thank you doesn't like mean that now you have written a contract that people now can be like, hey, you said thank you when someone said you're an activist, and now I notice that you're not doing all the things that other activists are doing when you have now become a member of the activist community by saying thank you, as we know is legally binding. But that I really do think that that you like, I understand, and it's so, I mean, it could be easier, it could be helpful, like, to not if somebody says you're a comedian, if somebody says, I mean, obviously there's terms that don't apply. If somebody says, no, what you're doing is kind of like music, you're like a musician, but like, it's all relative in a way as well. I have a new joke about how, you know, essential part of it is that if you're a poet, then I'm not a poet. But if you're not a poet, then I'm a poet. You know, like I write poetry. Like I'm more a poet than a lot of people because a lot of people don't write poetry. But I'm also not officially a poet. I'm not legally, like I don't make my money getting like writing poetry. I don't put it down on my taxes. But like you get to, you know, you might ride a bike. You might not be a cyclist, but you can ride a bike. You're a cyclist more than I am because I never learned how to ride a bike. You know, like those are things that are so it's and labels are just meant to be helpful because humans are, you know, we're a categorizing species. We're seeking stories and patterns that make sense to us. Be like, what is this? Like, and what they're seeing in you is the spirit of these things. They're seeing the spirit of a comedian. They're seeing the spirit of an activist, even if you're not one in the letter. You're 100%. And it says now on the screen, I see we're waiting for the Black Guy Who Tips podcast to reconnect. I think he's really going deep within and taking the things that I'm sharing and taking them to heart. And I think he's going to come back. And now it's just me and Karen. So happy to be here with you, Karen. And and I don't hear Karen anymore because I guess I was hearing her through Rod's scenario. But I guess this is my podcast now. Thank you, everyone, for coming to see the white guy who also tips, the Jewish fellow who tips. But Rod will be back. But in the meantime, I think that the spirit of who we are and the letter of who we are, like not that one is important and the other isn't important. Like, it's great to know who you are in the letter of the law. And it's also good to know who you are in spirit, and how you appear to others may not be how you appear to yourself, but it's also nice to, you know, it's good to honor both.
I respect that, but I feel like honoring my truth is as a person, I don't like to be mislabeled, you know?
Absolutely.
And so I think what happens is that they think it's a compliment, and because it's a compliment, they think I'm rejecting the compliment, as opposed to just being like, I feel fine being not labeled that way, and I still receive the good energy.
He still receives the good energy, but we don't receive it anymore. I'll tell you this as well, while we wait for him to reconnect again. Lenny Bruce, one of the most influential comedians of all time, once said, "I'm not a comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce." And I truly do feel like that when you achieve a certain level, when you attain a certain status in whatever art form you're in, like one of the highest compliments, one of the highest aspirations for a lot of people is to not be even like the best comedian or the best podcaster, but to be yourself, like to be like Prince is Prince, you know, and Beyonce is Beyonce, and there need be no comparison. We're like, oh, is she the greatest? Is she a rapper? Is she R&B? Is she like what? You don't even, once you're Beyonce, you don't have to worry about what genre you're in. You're the Beyonce genre. Like Reggie Watts is the Reggie Watts genre, you know, like Maria Bamford is the Maria Bamford genre, and Rod, you are the Rod genre. And he came back, he appeared, and then he disappeared again. And here he is.
I can hear you the whole time.
Yes, I can hear you too.
But something was happening with that browser, so I closed it. We're just gonna use Chrome now. But yeah, no, I appreciate the sentiment, but yeah, it's just not, you know. And in my head, I am one of those people that goes, I respect this title enough to understand there's things that come with it, you know, responsibility.
Yes,
and so
and that I'm not willing, I don't want to do, you know, and like I say, it's out of respect that I don't grab the hat and put it upside my head, because I was like, well, I'm not, because of me, I don't have that type of
yeah, I'm just like, I mean, now technically someone could hold you to that standard even if you disagree, but but at least I have a say in the part I have a say in is the part that I want to be like, like hey, I respect and understand where you're coming from. I don't need that from me, but you know, I don't want to get stuck on that, but just
No, I think you're in good company as well. Like, it's not the exact same thing, but I think there's a parallel between like Jon Stewart and or John Oliver, who are both, they are comedians and they would identify as only comedians, even though for a time I think some majority of like young people were getting their news mainly from The Daily Show, even though it's not it's a comedy news show. Like, there was real news, like they did real research, but they're not journalists. Like when Jon Stewart would go and hold journalists to task and be like, hey, you're not being a good journalist, they could be like, well, you're not being a good journalist. He's like, yeah, I'm not a journalist. I'm a comedian, and people shouldn't be getting their news more from me than from theoretically you, a journalist, but like you're more of a clown than me, the clown,
Right. Like that's a huge thing. Another major news story. Jonathan Majors, the actor, reportedly has been dropped by his management and PR teams following the domestic violence charges that he was accused of.
Oh no!
Yeah, I think like his PR team or lawyer or whatever at first put out this like broad sweeping statement that made it was almost unequivocal. Like, this is clearly a setup. This man will be free. He's got witnesses. There's a video. He's going to be exonerated. We're all going to see this huge misunderstanding. And that was a few weeks ago. And no one's seen the video. I don't know that any of the witnesses have come forward. And who knows what's happening behind the scenes. But anytime your PR people and management drop you, which is literally the time that you pay them for, you know what I feel like?
Yes.
Like,
like this is why they pay you for
like
moments like this.
Your PR people and your crisis management people are literally, they got one job, and if they get to a crisis where they're like, this is too much, it's not boding well for him. So I really, maybe we'll see that footage, maybe we won't. And then if the footage isn't exactly as they said, which it almost have to be comically ridiculous to make it not him, like him being somewhat physically aggressive towards this woman. Like, I don't even know what the explanation could be. It would, like, you'd have to see a video of someone like beating themselves up and being like, you're doing this to me, and like completely faking it. Because if not, he's just a guy that like hit a woman. And I don't think, whether it be Creed 3 franchise, the Creed franchise, whether it's Marvel, all those Marvel movies, I don't think anybody wants to have that affiliated with their brand. So
nope. And I know because of capitalism, that's, I hate to be like this. This is why I'm concerned. I love the Marvel franchise. So Mr. Kevin Feige and them trust. They are somewhere saying, what do we do? And how do we handle this? And now how do we still keep these things we have in line and rewrite and revamp? So trust. Somebody somewhere is having meetings right now about this.
I saw a statement that was kind of a weird statement. It was like, there have been no discussions at Marvel to replace him yet or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, that's kind of a non-story, isn't it? Like, isn't the fact that that's a story mean that he's probably out? Like, that you had to report it?
It doesn't make any sense at all. Like, there's clearly, like, there's definite, like, there's conversations. This is a conversation. Them saying there have been no conversations about this is, number one, at least the first, if not probably the 17th conversation about this. The good news is, with all of the Marvel movies now, and the fact that there is like a multiverse, in the canon of Marvel, like, all they have to do is go back. Like, Kang, his character is a time traveler, so all they have to do is go back in time and recast somebody else, or forward in time, and they'll have a brand new Kang. They've had numerous Spider-Man actors in the same Spider-Man movie, which is pretty cool. Like, so good. I think, thank goodness, the most important part of this story, in which a human was violently assaulted, is that Marvel will probably be okay.
Yes, our entertainment, that's what it's all about. It's been interesting, the response from people I traffic in online, because a lot of people really, really, really like this dude. Like, he did a press run. He got all chiseled. He's like super sexy.
Oh, yeah, he did Lovecraft Country.
Yeah, he's just done a bunch of stuff, especially for like black entertainment. Like black people really like his work. But because of that, even the people that normally are like, man, fuck this guy, you know, like right away, whatever, like someone's accused of something, everyone's been given the most like nuanced, like the most like, hey guys, you know, like let's hear him out. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. It's not looking good.
That's what I said. It's not looking good at all.
Yeah, like I get it, because the thing for me is that I'm kind of always a let's hear him out guy. So
yeah, versus a lot of them are not.
Yeah, right. This is the first time I've had company on the let's hear him out side where I'm like, I don't, and it's never like let's hear him out because they're innocent. It's always just like, I don't need to rush to judgment. I have nothing to do with this situation. Either stuff will come out and we'll be like, oh, that's what happened, or stuff comes out the other way. You go, oh, that's what happened, or nothing ever comes out. But I at no point am beholden to like being the first person to call balls and strikes on this. This isn't like a sports team or something where I'm like, I think they're gonna win the game. Like, it doesn't even fucking matter. But people are very invested in, like, you know, like I saw someone say, man, he just needs, first of all, as Myq astutely pointed out, we're talking about potentially there's a person who's been victimized here, but instead people are like, what he needs to do is go on the red table talk. I'm like, how is that the most important thing to you right now? That's crazy. We don't know this dude, but good luck, you know.
Yeah. If it turns out, I mean, that, like, again, we just don't, like, we live in a society right now where it seems like with the news cycle, with pop culture, with the media, there's so many stories. And I mean, like, you know, we're here on your show, you cover pop culture news stories, but you don't cover all the stories, and you can't do in-depth research into all the stories. You don't have a team of journalists working for you. We can only, you know, see the news as it comes out from the people who are reporting it on the ground. So like, it's, my friend Gus shared this perspective with me, and it kind of, you know, blew my mind a little bit, that he's just like, it seems like everyone thinks that they have to have a take on everything. And it's just often the case that, like, literally, I think you literally can't. You can't have a nuanced, detailed take on everything unless part of your take is, I don't know. Let's see. So like the let's hear him out front, like, let's see what happens. Let's see what new information arises. And maybe this woman, maybe his victim would be the best person to be recast as Kang. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I've already seen the recast of it. It's so funny. This article, I'm not gonna read the whole thing but I just thought the headline was funny. And it's a tongue-in-cheek article from the AV Club. So I think they understand that it's funny as well. But it's, if the Mario movie makes $1 billion, we really might be screwed. Ha ha ha. And then it goes on to talk about how, like, if this movie, which we do like, which we do think is good, is too successful, then they'll make other movies which may not be as good and may not be as successful. And then we'll have less good movies about other video games and stuff, which is just like when we were younger and all the video game movies were bad. So we don't want this thing. And I just always find it funny because, one, movie critics treat movies like the stock market now. Like it just stopped at some point in my lifetime. It just literally stopped being like, I like this movie from 1 to 5 stars. Here's how.
Right.
And it started being like, okay, I like this movie, but what does that mean for the other movies? And how does this mean? What does it mean if it's a franchise? What does it mean for the company? What does this mean for literally the movie theater stock? You know, stuff like, I'm like, the experience of pure sitting in a theater is to me the main story, right? But then the other thing is there supposed to be some magical point where all the movies are good? Is that where we're trying to get? Like, are we trying to get to this fictional moment where we are at max capacity of just good movies, no bad movies will ever be made, and everything? Who I don't even know
what's good.
Yeah, that's what I don't even know why, and it feels, maybe it's because we're all like children now, like we're all 40-year-old children, and we never truly grew up. We grew up in an internet age where everything's kind of at our beck and call. We play video games to this day, and maybe our entertainment is that important to us. But like, is it really that fucking important if all the movies are good? I'm okay if they drop some bad video game movies.
Yeah.
After this, I enjoyed that Mario Brothers movie, and
Me
I think
too.
that's fine. It's not really supposed to.
Mhm.
It's not supposed to be a tent pole of our life in a way that makes us worry. I do this when I go on nerd shows all the time when I'm a guest, and this is and now that I've said it, people listening, you won't be able to unhear it either. Listen to how many nerd shows are just about people with anxiety, because
Aw.
they'll be like, I'm worried about Star Wars. And I'm like, why are you? I'm worried about real world wars. Okay. I'm I'm worried about Afghanistan war. Like, these aren't real problems, really, in that type of way. But like, I think it's just our anxiety needs a place to go, and it goes to the thing we're absorbed with the most, which is at this moment probably entertainment. But yeah, I don't know. This kind of like this article made me I just laughed because I was like, what, we've kind of lost the plot here, no pun intended.
Rod, if I may say, that's a point well made, and I think it's really funny. Like the idea that I'm anxious about Star Wars, and you're like, I'm anxious about real wars. That is a funny joke. You are, and I won't accept that you're not a comedian. A sit-down podcast comedian.
Yes,
I'll take that.
I like to sit.
I
I like the sit down part because I don't stand.
Yeah, truly, the thing that you're saying, like it's in a Buddhist paradigm, like wherein there is suffering is the first noble truth, and suffering, the word that gets translated as that sometimes gets translated as discomfort. And even the things that are comfortable, even the things that are positive in our lives are a source of this discomfort, because if something is positive, we worry about losing it. If something is negative, we worry about its impact. Will it be like that forever? Will it keep doing that? And so I feel like this movie doing well, when a good movie doing well is a source of, negative, of catastrophization, like it's just sort of a manifestation of the way that humans are essentially MacGyvers of suffering. Does that make sense? Like we can take anything, be like, oh, you want suffering? Give me a piece of dental floss and $1 billion movie, and I'll give you. And I don't even need the dental floss. I'm all out of gum. And this movie can be a source of anxiety. Ramin Nazer is an artist, comedy friend of mine who I love. He's done like some of my album and podcast artwork, and he's wonderful, Ramin Nazer. And there's a piece of art that I have of his that I think is hanging by my front door, and it's like two characters that are like kind of these just amorphous, beings. One of them is all black, completely dark, and then the other one is like rainbow colored, and they're both depressed. And like one of the complete, like, a black hole one is like and of course not in an African-American black kind of way, but in
I'm picking up what you're putting now,
a deep dark depression kind of way. That one's like, oh no, like what if this is forever, and things are bad, what if it's forever? And the rainbow one, the positive one, is like, oh no, what if this doesn't last? And that's kind of all of us who aren't Buddhas.
Like, I find, because whenever I'm invited on like a nerd show or whatever, I hope I'm not their annoyance, because I'm the one who's like, yeah, but guys, it's a Star Wars movie, right? Like, we're gonna be fine no matter what happens.
like it's gonna be all right, right?
They're like, they're like, what about like I remember one time I was on a show and someone was like, well, what if my grandma wants to watch this movie and she doesn't have Disney Plus? So then she watches this movie and she hasn't watched the Disney series based on the movie, and so she doesn't have all the backstory. So I feel like they're kind of asking a lot of us, and I just was like, can't you just give your mom your Disney Plus password or something? like how we've created a problem that we have a solution to.
Yeah,
but I think is having the problem is the thing that I think people are tied to now, and I think that's, even tongue-in-cheek wise, that's kind of what this review reminded me of, is like our culture is very much like, I'm having a good time. How is this a problem? Let me tell you.
Ha.
You know,
Rod,
I'm having
can,
a good time.
oh,
That's curious.
can I say this? I think I've been in your position on shows as well, that, you know, trying to contextualize. I remember in high school, like, there was a discussion about like raising funds to have like lights on the football field so people could, you know, play football games at night. And I'm like, couldn't they just take the money and like feed people with it? You know, like there's what, which is not the exact same thing. And they're like, no, this is football money, not food ball money. But like, I think that there's like a, when there's context is important. Like, you go on these shows, if it really seems like they're actually like, you know, anxious, their anxiety, they're like, you know, what is it? Clinical anxiety is, you know, it'll manifest in whatever way, like you said, like it'll be this or that, and like therapy is the answer to that, you know, like your point, you know, whack-a-moling down, be like, oh no, this will be okay, but real war is the problem. But so I do think it's like, number one, a funny thing to say, to be like, hey, zooming out, like, isn't this silly? And then hopefully, if people can see that, then you can be like, okay, now that we see that, then we can zoom back in and be like, okay, in the world in which we understand that this is silly, like, then what are we gonna do about these
I think
wacky
like
movies?
What's fun for me is always observing that these things were meant for fun.
Right.
And then that's how I have fun within talking about them, is because even when something's bad or you don't like it, you can still go,
fun
ultimately, these are grown ass people playing make believe, and we're just having fun watching them.
Yes.
So, like, am I worried the Avengers next movie won't be great? Not really, because contextually, things that worry me are, to me, much more serious than that.
Yeah.
But in the world of making movies, sure, you can be worried about it, but I think there's an attachment to worry that people have, and I try to divorce myself from it in general, because I feel like it doesn't, worrying typically is energy going to something you can't do anything about it at the moment because it's already past and you can't change the past, or it's going to happen in the future, and it would be more productive to do something in the present if you want to change the future. But these things are out of our hands when we talk about creative products. So it feels like the kind of thing I wouldn't want it to get attached. I don't want my anxiety attached to it, because I'm like, it's so out of my control. Like, I'd rather have my anxiety attached to like my credit score or something that, like, something that even in those cases, by the way, something can happen you can't control. But like, I'd rather have it attached to something I feel is a little bit more tangible to me. You know, like, oh, if I would like to lose weight, I can eat less calories today. And one day down the road, if I do this enough days, I will have lost weight. As opposed to like, I can wish and hope all I want to. I can't make the next Star Wars movie great. That has nothing to do with me.
I love it. And can I tell you, this new album that I released has this joke on it, that is about Buddhism, and how in Buddhism they say everything in your life is either something that you can control or something that you can't control, right? You either can control something or you can't control something. And they say, if you can't control something, don't worry about it, because you can't control it. And if you can control something, they say, don't worry about it, because you can control it. So there's actually never anything in life to worry about. And if that doesn't make complete sense, then don't worry about it. That's it. So that's the joke.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on the punchline.
No.
So
You stepped on my punchline with laughter, and that's allowed. But like, what you're saying makes complete sense, because we, in the moment, like, do you remember, I feel like this is like a practice that's valuable from like some different spiritual and practical like walks of life. Like, 1 year ago, what was the thing you were most worried about? Like that day, on this day, that year, like we can't do it. We can't be like 3 weeks ago. Like there's always something that, is like of the most concern to us. Like for us right now, it may be the move or like, figuring out where we're going to stay, or when I have to be in the UK, do I have to rent a car and figure out how to drive on the other side of the road? I like that we call it the wrong side of the road. I'm going to start saying the other, but we
just watch out for that chicken that's crossing it.
Yeah, but day. I'm sorry. I was gonna steamroll that, but there we are. Thank you for that. That rubber chicken that is fine to steamroll. The fact that that right now, the thing that is like, and there are big things like my mom said she got from like either Dear Abby or Ann Landers, like that some problems are a lump in the oatmeal and other problems are a lump in the breast. And like, when you have a problem that rises to lump in the breast, then you're like, oh, wow, I can't believe all the times that I was concerned with lump in the oatmeal stuff, like war, lump, like even larger perhaps than lump in the breast, collective, massive, society wide lump in the breast. But lump, so many things on a daily basis are our own individual, like I feel like I'm grateful whenever I realize that, like I stub my toe and I'm like, well, if that's the problem I'm dealing with now, like that's a manageable problem. That's a concern that I can deal with. And yeah, it makes complete sense to think about the things that we can control.
A thing that I made a video today. I haven't actually uploaded it anywhere, but I was at the basketball court because I've just been going to the gym, shooting around, maybe do the track or something like that. Since I've been back home and I can have a routine again, And so I was in there and I realized something. Like, one, I had these new basketball shoes that I bought and they were too tight. And so the last time I went to shoot around, I literally could only shoot around like 5-10 minutes and my feet were hurting so bad. I was like, oh my God, I don't even know how I'm going to wear these shoes home to drive. Who was I that left the house thinking I could do this? And so I went on Amazon and I bought something that stretches your shoes and you just like insert it and you can like turn it and it stretches the shoes. The other thing is my basketball. It's been a couple years in the pandemic. I haven't been going to the gym to play basketball because, I don't know if you guys heard, it was kind of dangerous. And so my basketball deflated. It would slowly deflate. This is like a couple years ago. It was like not like I could actually play basketball with it at the court, and then overnight it would kind of deflate a little bit. And so every time I play basketball, I have to pump it up with a little mini pump I had and stuff. And so I looked on Amazon and there was like this isn't an ad for Amazon, but there was some type of sealant you could buy. Specifically for a basketball or a flat ball that has a flat in it. You put it in, you pump it up, and then you dribble it, bounce it around for a while, and then it seals it. And so I got some of that stuff. And last time I shot around, I like dribbled the ball a long time, and this morning, ball was still inflated, no leak or any of that stuff. My shoes I put on, my shoes had like room in them and stuff. And the video I made was like, every problem, somebody's had it before you.
Yeah, you don't really think about it. Everybody goes into panic mode.
You may not have had it, right? Yes. You may not have had the problem yet. So to you, it's this brand new thing, this concept. You weren't even like whatever. And this is just a basketball and some shoes. But to me, these were like, how the fuck? I'm just gonna have to pump this basketball up every day. I guess I have to throw my shoes away. This is what I was thinking. And I was like, someone else in the world has been like, I don't want to throw these shoes away. I would like my shoes to fit on my feet bigger. And it was like, so anyway, my point being is the times that I spent worried about the basketball or the times that I spent worried about the shoes or whatever, it was more proactive to look for a solution and then use that solution to like make the things more accommodating to me. And so now I still have my basketball, because it's my favorite basketball. I still have my favorite basketball and I have these new shoes that I can wear. And it's the worrying part was next time I can avoid the worrying part kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I feel you. And everybody kind of goes through this in their own way. And Roger kind of joking about it, but I I kind of get panic and worry when it comes to like technology stuff. And so, Roger could ask me to do something and I'll panic and I'll just unplug shit. And he's like, I didn't actually do any of that. You're actually making the situation worse, which actually makes me worry more.
That's funny. Like I truly think the things that there's so many things that come up that we didn't worry about because we didn't even know, like most of us didn't know that there was going to be a pandemic until very shortly before or during the pandemic. Like,
right.
There were people in the government that had previously been like, yeah, let's just in case there is a pandemic, we'll be ready for it. But not exactly, everybody there either. But like, I had years ago, before my current relationship, there was a time when I remember I was sort of between, I cared for a couple different people and I was like, not sure how the world was going to be. And it felt very like dramatic. And I remember like being on the phone with my friend Zach and being like, oh my God, like, I don't know. And like, eventually like, we were remembering this time later, like during my current relationship, which has been going on for about 7 years now. And, 7 going on infinity. Like this is the one that's going to keep happening even beyond death. We're going to try not to die, but if we do, we're going to keep going. And like, I think, marriages, they're always like till death do you part. We're like beyond death, we never part.
Yeah.
And I remember we were like rehashing, be like, remember the time when I was like, man, is it going to be person A or is it going to be person B? And I was like, oh God, what is it going to be? And then my friend Zach, I think Zach and Rini, my girlfriend now, were both kind of like, yeah. And you didn't even at that time know about option the best. Like you hadn't even met the person that you were going to be with and want to spend your entire life with at that time that you were trying to be like, oh God, is it what is it? And so that's so much of us all of the time. Like we don't know, like of the oatmeal lumps, like which ones we're not going to be worried about tomorrow or next week or next year for sure. And all we can do is hopefully work on the massive societal breast lumps.
And I also remember like back when you were like you had an open relationship and like you were dealing in like polyamory and stuff, but you were also like so like confident and assertive and like and to this day I still feel like a good representative of like this alternative to what a lot of people consider like you have to do or whatever, like I was told this is what to do when I was a kid and this is what you do. You get with one person and you get a house or whatever. And they never stop to ask like, do I have to? Do I want to? And all that stuff. And it's interesting because then when you got with Rini and it's a close relationship because y'all are very close with each other. And
close. We're close. Yeah. Close.
They're very close. There's not a lot of room in these apartments anymore.
No, it's very small.
But now it's like this. It's like what people on the outside would consider like a traditional, type of relationship. But I think because you didn't like express or put a lot of like worry about it or a lot of fretting out to people about it, you kind of say it felt like to me on the outside looking in. It felt like you saved a lot of worry to me. Like, oh, like now hearing that there was a time where you're like, man, I was really worried about this, or I was thinking about this. But at least on the outside looking in, it's like, man, I feel like you kind of navigated that in a way to where when you showed up, not showed up, but as you navigated this and you're like, yep, I'm with Rini now, and this is the situation. There's never a point where I was like, oh man, that's not what the situation used to be. I was just like, it's like, oh yeah, that was really, there's nothing to worry about. You sound just as confident as in forever and after death as you did when it was, more of a poly situation. So I think there's a lesson to that too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, really, here's a weird analogy that I'm going to try to make sound reasonable. You know how like feminism made it possible. Like it used to be that women couldn't work and women had to stay home. And eventually, like, feminists and the feminist movement made it possible that women could work, and now women have the choice. Women can choose to work if they want, or if they're in a relationship, like let's say a lesbian relationship, where one person makes the money and the other person is like, I'm happy to stay home and take care of the house and take care of the kids. And like, that's not a normative, like if you zoom in, you're like, oh, a woman taking care of the kids while a woman is out paying the bills. Like, so having the choice is the thing. And for me, when I was in open relationships, when I like resonated with polyamory and wanted to live that way, part of it was because I wanted to have the choice to live how I wanted to. And now I'm like a feminist choosing, like, I'm like, this is the home that I want to live in. I want to keep this home, this relationship, this heart, this life with my wonderful girlfriend, with my partner, Rini. Like, this is why I wanted to be open to find the love that I wanted, that I thought might come in, multiple forms or multiple relationships over the course of years, which it did for a while come in multiple relationships over the course of years, some simultaneous, some, one after another. But I'm like, oh, now this is the one that fills, and like, I still have, like, of course, many platonic friendships, many wonderful, dear friends who I love, that I feel like I'm polyplatonic now, and kind of always have been. And but that fills, if there was a need for, like, because, for the most part, there is no person for whom one person fulfills all of your every kind of need. Like, you're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, and also you have friends. Like, I don't know if y'all two play basketball together, or if Rod's like, I'm gonna go play basketball with other people. And Karen, you probably have some things that you do without Rod. I have some things that I do on my own or with other friends. Rini has things that she does on her own or with other friends. And it's just, I mean, we figured out, like, what works for us. And it's sort of like the way that, everyone gets to determine, like, your own, like, we're all kind of like living our own religion, we're all kind of living our own, to go back to the parlance of earlier, like, our own identity. We all get to like describe our lives, how they are internally and how they manifest externally. And what was true on Monday, that I wanted multiple relationships, like, is no longer true on Wednesday because of what happened on Tuesday. And what happened on Tuesday is I met and got to know and discovered, like, how deep and rich and, multifaceted being with this one human being is. It's also pretty beautiful that we are recording this now on a Tuesday. So that's what happened on Tuesday is this.
Yeah. Wednesday, where a lot of people's lives are going to be changed. Well, listen, this has been so fun. I think we can sum this all up in don't worry, be nomad. That sums up to most of our thoughts.
Don't worry, be nomad. I love it.
Yes, be nomad, everybody.
And don't worry about the lump in your oatmeal. Every time I eat oatmeal, I'm gonna think about that.
Myq, can you tell people about the new stand-up album and where to find you?
Thank you so much. So the newest widely released album is called Live in Between Albums, and it is on, all of the places that you can download, stream, or otherwise purchase. It was produced by the same folks who produced my last album, aka Blonde Medicine. So it's on their site, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music, whichever evil corporation you want to support, you can do that. And I called it Live in Between Albums because I recorded an album in 2016, no kidding, about how I didn't want kids. I released an album in 2020, aka short for All Killing Aside, about how I want there to be love and compassion and not murdering. So the two themes together are I don't want to make more people, and I also don't want to remove any of the old people. So I just want like the same amount of people. But I still found, so I really like doing these themed albums, and I also found that I was still writing a lot of jokes that didn't fit with either of the themes, and I wanted to share those jokes. So in 2018, we released very narrowly just to satellite radio this album. So it was only playing on satellite radio for the past several years, which is why it'll say that it came out in 2018, but it only last month has been widely available everywhere, live in between albums, a beautiful new cover by Ramin Nazer, and it's just full of fun, silly jokes that really are mostly like evergreen, not topical. You can enjoy at any point. I will say the only thing that's not evergreen about it is there's a track where I analyze the various Fast and Furious movie titles, and I didn't know how many there were going to be, so it only goes up to probably 6 or 7. It certainly doesn't get up to Hobbs and Shaw and 9 and 10, but there'll be future albums where I'll get to. I hope that we never run out of Fast and Furious movies, and I hope that I never. As I hope that I don't die, I hope that I'll never stop releasing albums live in between those albums. But yeah, so Live in Between Albums is the name of the newest available one, and I hope you enjoy it.
I do worry about the next Fast and Furious movie. I'm just so upset.
I
was gonna be
no.
I'm not worried about it at all.
That was good acting. You're a good actor. In addition to a comedian and an activist, you have so many fingers and so many pies. You're like a chef as well.
Yeah. I like to call myself an activist.
That's another example of you being a comedian. Look at that, comedian / activist. So thank you so much for having me, as always, and for everyone else who is listening and watching and supporting and following the things that y'all do and I do.
Yes, and Mike, before we let you go, are you going to be performing live anywhere? In case anybody want to catch you live, you have any stand-up?
And make sure you do, man. I caught Mike totally by coincidence. I went to see Chris Lambert invited me to watch him do stand-up at I think Stick a Pole in it was the name of the show. And I didn't even know who the comedians were. And it's pole dancing and comedy and stuff. And then who comes in the door? Myq Kaplan. And I was like, what? The world is so big and so small at the same time. So yeah man. And he killed it. Also he killed it in a venue where I feel like people don't all kind of know what to expect, because it's literal pole dancing and then a stand-up comedian and then pole dancing. And so he made so many jokes, and he's literally mile a minute. Honest to God, almost you don't have time to laugh because you're missing something as you're laughing. But but you can't help yourself, because what you are catching makes you laugh. So then you just I don't know if I missed the next great moment or not, but guess what? More moments are coming, because he's never going to stop.
More moments are coming. That's a good name. I like that. I thank you for the kind words. It was a pleasure to see you there, and for you to have. We both had a wonderful experience. I'm glad. And for people who want to have future wonderful experiences, the next place I go, I will be in. I'm doing shows around New York. For the next week or two. If you're in the New York area, feel free to message me on whatever social media or email MyqKaplan@gmail.com, and I can tell you where those shows are. Some of them are on my website, but for some of the New York shows, they just come up pretty quick. And you can check my social media. I'm at Myq Kaplan, and I post a lot of shows there. I post them on my website. I will next be Rini and I are going to take a trip to see her family, and I'm going to do some shows in Kansas City in early May. Then I will be in West Virginia and Knoxville, Tennessee in later May. And then in June, I will be in San Francisco and Los Angeles and surrounding areas there for a couple weeks. So a lot of shows in California. In July, I didn't mean to say it like that. July. I started to say June, but I'm like, nope, I already did June. So I'll just keep going with July. All right. That was a problem. Don't say it like that, anybody. I'll be at the Arlington Cinema and Draft House in Arlington, Virginia, near DC. And then one of my favorite clubs, Acme, in Minneapolis. And then Rini and I will be flying to the UK. I'll do some shows in England. And then for all of August, if anyone is in or knows anyone who will be in Scotland, we'll be at the Edinburgh Fringe Fest doing my newest, as yet unrecorded show, so far imperfect. And so I'm going to be doing that a lot around. Oh, and I'll be doing it in New York. That's one of the things I'll be doing June 1st in New York, in Brooklyn. At Union Hall. So if you're in New York or any of the places that I mentioned, reach out to me. Let me know that you heard me on here, and I will be happy to have you at these shows. And yeah, follow my social media, and if you want my newsletter, it's myqkaplan.substack.com is where you can sign up for that. I send jokes out every week and other thoughts, and you can subscribe for free and get even more if you want.
There you go, man. And you have podcasts, and I mean, he's a man of all trades, jack of all trades. Yeah, make sure you check him out. Make sure you follow his socials. If you get a chance to catch him live, and don't forget to check out the albums and all that stuff.
Thank you. May I say real quick, I'd like to say that I'm a master. I'm a jack of no trades and a master of all.
Make sure y'all follow my man, and we'll be back tomorrow. And of course, guys, don't worry, be nomads. Until next time, I love you.
I love you too.
I love you.
Bye, everybody. Love you too, Mike.